From Babylon to Timbuktu, a history of ancient Black races, including the Black Hebrews, by Rudolph R. Windsor. Chapter 1: Ancient Black Civilization. More than 6,000 years ago, in the land called Mesopotamia, there developed the most remarkable civilization then known to mankind. This civilization was centered between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. These rivers begin in the mountains of Armenia and flow in a southeastern direction toward the Persian Gulf. The soil of this area is tremendously fertile because of the alluvial deposits brought down by the two rivers. Ethiopian civilization developed from ancient Black civilization. Without this Black civilization, white domination and influence as we know it today would have been improbable. A number of different tribes were entrenched in the southern part of the Tigris-Euphrates region. This southern section was known at different times by many names, among which are Sumer, Akkad or Akkad, and Chaldea. But the name best known to us is Babylonia. This area was also the location of the Garden of Eden, and the people of this region were jet black. I shall prove conclusively that the Black people have the most ancient history of all humans. The best available source of proof is the history of the Jews, known as the Bible. In Genesis 2:10, it is written, "And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads." There were four rivers which watered the Garden of Eden. I shall cite the third and the fourth rivers first. Then I shall proceed to the first and second rivers, because it fits better into my line of reasoning. Genesis 2:14 reads, "And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth towards the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates." Commentators and scholars have identified the river Hiddekel. They say it is the Tigris River. Now I shall cite Genesis 2:13. "And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia." Because the Garden of Eden is associated with the land of Ethiopia, we can conclude that the people were Black. Rashi, the 11th century commentator on the Bible, said that the Gihon is the Nile River that bows through eastern Africa. Rashi most likely makes this point because the Nile flows in Ethiopia and into Egypt. Dr. Spicer, who was a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, said, "There is no basis for the detouring of the Gihon to Ethiopia." He meant the Ethiopia in Africa, not to mention the Pishon in various remote regions of the world. I agree with Dr. Spicer that we should not search for the Gihon in Africa, nor the Pishon in a remote area of the earth, but that we should search for the Pishon and the Gihon in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley. There were two Ethiopian nations in ancient times, Eastern Ethiopia and Western Ethiopia. This point Dr. Spicer failed to elucidate, possibly because of an oversight. There was an Ethiopian civilization in southern Mesopotamia, Babylon, but the people in this region did not use their tribal name, Ethiopia, to designate their nationality. They called themselves by the name of the cities that they constructed and inhabited, or they called themselves by an event that happened there. For example, God confused the language of the people at the Tower of Babel or Babel. Babel means confusion in Hebrew. This is why the Ethiopian tribes called themselves Babylonians, referring to the name of the city that they constructed. There are many nations that are not designated by their true nationality. For example, the white Australians came from England, but those Englishmen who live in Australia do not call themselves by their ancestral name. They call themselves by the name of the country which they colonized, which is Australia. The people of Australia are represented in the United Nations by the name of their nation, Australia, and not under their ancestral name, England. The people who resided in the lower part of the Tigris Euphrates Valley were Ethiopian, black in complexion. We read in Genesis 10:8 that Cush begat Nimrod. The word Cush means Ethiopia, and Cush was the father of the Ethiopians. For the meaning of the word Cush, see Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary. Nimrod was a mighty Ethiopian conqueror and builder in the land of Shinar. We find in Genesis 10:8-10 that Nimrod ruled over such cities as Babylon, Erech, Akkad, or Akkad. All these cities are situated in the land of Shinar. Another name for Shinar is Sumer. This civilization was of a high order and one of the oldest civilizations in ancient times. In Genesis 10:7, we read, "And the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah." Now we have learned that Havilah was the son of Cush, who was an Ethiopian. The word Havilah became the name of a tribe and a region known as the land of Havilah, and the Havilites, Ethiopians, lived in the land of Havilah. Moreover, scholars have located this land near the Persian Gulf. In search of the land of Havilah, we find that there was another Havilah who was one of the sons of Joktan. Read Genesis 10:26-29. But this Havilah was of the line of Shem. Read Genesis 10:22. Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, or Japheth. The children of Shem are called Shemites, the sons of Ham are called Hamites, and the sons of Japheth are called Japhites. We should not confuse Havilah, the son of Joktan, with Havilah, the son of Cush. Now it is logical to conclude that Havilah, the son of Cush, is intended in Genesis 2:11 to be the Havilah of the land of Havilah, because that Havilah was a Kushite, Ethiopian. His habitation would naturally be adjacent to his brother Nimrod, who ruled Babylon. Abraham was one of the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Abraham's father, Terah, came from the land of Ur of the Chaldees. Genesis 11:26-28. The land of Ur of the Chaldees was located at the southern part of the Euphrates. The Chaldeans were one of many Kushite tribes. Cush means black, according to the Bible dictionary. This dictionary defines further Cush, the name of a son of Ham, apparently the eldest, and of a territory or territories occupied by his descendants. The Kushites appeared to have spread along tracts extending from the higher Nile to the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. History affords many connections between Babylon, Arabia, and Ethiopia. There is more than adequate evidence that the ancient nations of Babylon, Akkadian, Sumer, the Chaldea, were inhabited by Kushite tribes, Ethiopians, on all sides of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. The Pishon and the Gihon rivers mentioned in Genesis 2:11-13 wind in turn through the land of Havilah, somewhere near the Persian Gulf. Although it is difficult to identify these two rivers exactly, most likely the center of the Garden of Eden was in the lower part of the Tigris Euphrates Valley. This was the most fertile region in the Middle East, with its many canals and lakes. No wonder it was called the Garden of Eden. It was so well watered that the vegetation looked better than an English park. The Tigris and Euphrates River join before they reach the Persian Gulf. Then they separate again, making 4 rivers of the channels of these 2 rivers. This is one of the theories of the top-rated authorities. The modern names of the rivers that flow into the Tigris and Euphrates are the Great Zab, south of Nineveh, the Little Zab, south of the Great Zab, the Diyala River flows into the Tigris at Baghdad, Iraq. Sumer and Kish. Before the dispersal of mankind at the Tower of Babel, this region was not called Babylon. It was only after the confusion of the language and the dispersal of the people that the name Babel was given to the tower. This conclusion is reached by way of logic. What was the name of this region and tower before the confusion of the language and the dispersal? Webster's Dictionary, Gazetteer section says, Sumer is the southern division of ancient Babylon. Moreover, this same dictionary says on page 849, Sumerian, the pre-Semitic population of the lower Euphrates Valley. The pre-Semitic population means that the black Sumerians were there first. This point is in harmony with my original position that the people in lower Mesopotamia were Eastern Ethiopians. These Sumerians or Ethiopians and their kindred appear to have settled along tracts from Mesopotamia to India. This area now includes southern Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwest India. The first and second allusions in Sumer in the Bible are in Genesis 10:10 and 11:1 under the name Shinar. Webster's Dictionary, Gazetteer section limits to this relationship of Shinar and Sumer. There is definitely a blood relationship between the Dravidian tribes of India and the Ethiopian Sumerians. The Sumerian civilization preceded the Babylonian. The Sumerians founded cities that existed more than 4,000 years BC, such as Eridu, Lagash, Nippur, Kish, and Ur. Archaeologists have found skeletons of ancient Dravidian and Neda types in Ur and Kish. Antiquated Sumerian statuettes resemble the statuettes of the Dravidian civilization.